I just want to say welcome everybody, but I do want to brag a little bit more about Odin. Um, Odin, this leatherwork stuff is kind of his secondary thing, and which is becoming his primary thing.
Right.
But started out as the secondary thing, which is kind of cool. But he is a marketer by trade, which I think is super valuable. I know I always love catching up with Odin and talking with him because he's just so full of knowledge and good advice. And I love that he's able to take the things that he knows about marketing and apply them directly to our industry because sometimes in the big marketing world it feels a bit uh, what it feels a bit fluffy or maybe even uh, just bigger than this right here, or bigger than my small business or my side hustle or something
Yeah.
like that. So I do love all that you bring, not only just your
Thank
skill
you.
set in leathercraft, but also your wisdom in
I
that
appreciate
regard
that.
as well.
You're
But
too kind. Thank you.
well, it's true. It is very true. Um, anyways, well, let's dive in. I know for all of you here, we probably all know last month we dropped 3 courses with Odin, the classic satchel, which is like the big project course, one on pattern making, which was super in depth and really good. And so practical. I mean, I just remember going through. I don't watch every minute. Sorry. Shh. Don't tell Derek and Rachel, but I do go through things to just so I can have a good idea, especially if I'm not able to be in the studio the whole time. But I really love the practicality of your course on pattern making. It was really good, at least for me. And I'm not probably ever going to do this, but I really liked that you're like, just get it 89% of the way before, it doesn't have to be perfect
Yeah.
before you go ahead and put it to leather. And then I loved your very functional foundational course on rivets because I think we all mess those up.
Well,
Or
it's
so
funny
I've
because
heard.
I think everyone messes. I really, it's funny. I'm laughing at myself as you describe the courses because really it's because I don't have a technical background. I'm not a trained pattern maker or, I didn't go to art school and learn how to do draping and all that kind of, stuff. It'd be cool to know, but it's just practical. Get into it. This is the best way to make it work, without a bunch of fanfare, right? So there may be other ways to do it. I'm sure there are many other ways to do it that are very technical, but that's how I do it. Do it cardboard, little duct tape, Sharpie. We'll figure it out as we
Loved
go.
it. I thought it was just so, I really did appreciate that. I was like, oh, that was really good. Um, and I think it feels less intimidating because I think
I hope
pattern
so.
making is an intimidating thing. I mean, I'm going to open this up to the group, but for anybody that has attempted a bag, have you ever drawn your own pattern, and have you ever went through that process? And yeah, how was that? I mean, to me, that feels a little intimidating. But anyone?
I'll tell you, I do hear from a lot of folks, and they do believe it's intimidating. They're used to using patterns that are pre-made for them, which is fine, right? I mean, that's where we all learn. But it's nice to finally get out of those patterns, those paper patterns, and start, taking your own creations and come up with your own thing. But for me, it was intimidating. Well, I had a hard time with it for sure. So I'm sure so everyone else is dealing with the same thing. How do I get an idea out of my head and get it onto paper? Turn this fluffy idea in my head into something that's three-dimensional, and then that needs to be turned into a two-dimensional item. I mean, I'm certainly happy to help talk to anyone and talk them through that process. But I'll tell you that the secret basically is just to get started.
Yeah,
In the day,
I
that's
did
where
love that.
it's just get started. That's gonna be the secret.
Well,
Yeah, I go ahead, Mark.
coming from my era where when you went into
try and get any help. They covered it up and wouldn't help your sharing thing. Pattern making was essential for us at that stage of the game. We didn't have makers where you could call and order a pattern. You had to come up, you had to, even if it wasn't your idea and you were trying to make something from somebody else, you had to figure out how to build that pattern. And I think that's missing in today's society. And so courses where you describe how to build the pattern is almost more important than just building the product itself.
I would agree. I absolutely agree. And there's different, I mean, you can make it more, obviously, like I said, you can make it more technical. You can get really into the weeds if you have to, Mark. But it's just not required, right? It's just not needed. I mean, I think us thinking through and thinking that it's more complicated than it is and really getting into the weeds, like, I don't know how this goes together. I don't know how that goes together. That's what stops us from moving forward. So I think in that course, which Derek should be given some credit for that, because it was all about him getting me to talk. Because I was like, I don't know what to talk about. I don't know what to share with them. I don't know how. I just start cutting paper and putting it together. So Derek really did more editing and putting that together. Then we need to give him some credit for that. But like I said, Mark, I don't have any. No one taught me how to do that. It was just trying to get a three-dimensional shape. And I'll tell you, even this year we're going to go even further with it. There's even ways to do this with blue tape and taping things up. And pretty soon we're going to start using some styrofoam and things like that here as well. And that may be something we can bring you as a different course at a later date, how to expand upon that. But if you have an idea, you have a rough shape, just get yourself some manila folders, some cereal boxes, and start forming it into the shape of what you're after. Right. I think for all of us, well, there's probably a few people that can just visualize, they can close their eyes and visualize the whole thing in their minds. I'm not like that personally. Usually starts that way. But just getting a rough shape that I can scratch on, I can use ink pen on and sort of say, I like this, don't like that, cut here, trim there, do that, and then rough it out that way. That's will get me 85-90% of the way there. Have any of you tried have any of you gone through that course yet? Have you watched those videos yet? Have you tried to make your own patterns?
Yeah. I started watching it a little bit recently. I've done pattern making for costuming and stuff in the past, so I was enjoying some of it because it was a rough outline of how I was taught. Was we're doing a lot for the Renaissance fairs, a lot of historical recreations. So you're making stuff out of a picture and hoping for the best. And I like the idea because there's a lot of what I was taught was to get the idea, structure it out. So I haven't finished the course, but I did definitely start it. Yeah. And it was a lot of that line of getting it in front of you, cutting it out, and building out.
Yeah. I got a lot of that from another bag maker who also I loved his designs, and he basically told me, this very talented gentleman told me that's pretty much how he does it as well. So I really took from him and kind of ran with it. Brett, I'm sorry I cut you off, sir.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I haven't started the course yet, so I kind of saw this tonight and thought it would be really interesting. So I guess I've just found what other people are doing and tried to copy something out. And, I have cut some stuff that didn't work, threw it away, tried something different. But I haven't really started from scratch with any one particular thing, I guess. So
But I think that's where all of us start. We start with we're inspired by the patterns. And I think the key thing is just not to limit yourself to those patterns, right? I mean, whether the pattern comes from Aaron has a lot of fantastic patterns, right? You can take those patterns and learn as you go and then expand them into so many other things. The satchel class that we were talking about earlier that I was able to do for you all, that really is the point. It's really a fairly basic satchel, right? Mm-hmm. It's really intended to be a platform for you to grow into and turn it into something that resembles, your artistic value, your artistic impression of whatever, add tooling, change materials, whatever. But once you get the basic part down, I think everything else gets easier. So if you have taken the satchel class, outstanding. I hope that, you're having success with it. I can answer questions on that as well also. But if you've taken it and you stop there, I think you're missing the point. Let's take it, let's do it, and then let's go to the next level and start tweaking things and turning it around. I've done some other patterns recently, and I was able to share those with the larger leathercraft community. And, don't think that the pattern maker is the one who has all the creativity, because there's been some really outstanding things that have come back my way. I'm like, that was a fantastic idea. I wish I would have thought about that, because now I look kind of foolish because, what I gave you wasn't as it wasn't as great. So, but that's the way it should be. Take the basic stuff and build on it. It's just building blocks. That's it.
I think that's why I like this platform, because the stuff you're sharing gives us the ability to dive off and get lost and try new things. And so that's something I really appreciate.
agree with Mark and I agree with Odin both. I think it's in my mind as I grew into leathercraft, I think there's importance to every part of this. And I always suggest like in tooling or bag making or saddle making, you know, getting the foundational start from someone that really is good at it and they're willing to let you have that pattern is a good way to foundationally get started. But then I also agree with what Odin and Mark said. I think it's important that we eventually grow out of that and make it our own. And you'll just get more out of it. I think in how you feel about it, how it looks to you, what what your mind perceives as what you think is great. And I think that is so important, you know, and everyone that knows the saddle courses, I always start with cardboard. I mean, because I want them to understand my thought process so that sometime down the road they can do the same thing. But I really appreciate that point, Odin, when you can get to that point and you're starting to pattern your own stuff, it can teach you so much as well, just with problems you may have along the way. And you're not wasting it all on leather too, because you know, I don't know how much stuff I threw away on paper that if I'd have started with leather.
When I started doing these, I would start on leather. And I wasted so much time, so much money, so much energy on leather. And we get frustrated and like, you know, what happened is you want to waste the leather and you get tired and you're like, well, I don't want to do that again. So then you're hesitant about starting a new project. When I found the cardboard, I started realizing, you know, you don't have to work with, you know, good leather on everything, right? In fact, maybe I should kind of step back a little bit and go through a process. So now I assume if I'm going to do a new pattern, new design, I'm assuming I'm going to make that item 2-3 times.
Yeah.
Right. The first time, very occasionally I'll hit a streak of genius, and the first one is perfect. Occasionally, that doesn't happen a lot though. Most of the time, it's like I have to get in there and play around with it. People ask me how do I do the bags here in my shop. They don't see the 7, 8, 9, 10 bags hidden, you know, behind the counter on the floor in the back room or whatever. Of me trying to sort out these little things. So if you're going through that and you're getting, discouraged, just know that is part of the process, right? So the cardboard, I would tell anybody that if the most valuable material in my shop is that, and we're talking about this cardboard, it's chipboard is what it is. I use a 0.2 millimeter chipboard. That really is irrelevant. It's just heavy cardstock, chipboard, poster board. I know people will literally go get the cereal boxes. They'll save, they won't throw them away. They'll use all that, right? It's just for you. Who cares what's on it? Who cares how pretty it is? The key thing about it just has volume to it. It has some firmness to it, right? It's something you can actually shape and mold and move around. And when you start stacking on top of each other, it gives you a better sense of what layering leather is. Now, obviously, it's not the same thing as layering 12-ounce leather on top of another piece, but it gives you something to work with. Paper alone is flimsy. It's tough to get it to do what you want. That cardboard, you can even wet the cardboard and mold it a little bit to a certain extent. If you go through the class, you'll even see how I bend it. Simulate like gussets and seam allowances and things like that. You can actually bend it around by cutting little slits, which is also another good skill about how to manipulate your leather into different shapes and things like that. There's a lot of good takeaways there, but biggest one is start cutting into pieces, put it into shapes. I mean, if you don't know the final shape, you don't know how to cut the shape, you could literally take a piece of cardboard and then glue that piece to another piece, and then that to another piece, and that to another piece, and that to another piece, and come up with a shape that makes sense for you. There's ways to do it, right? I'll share one other great material that will have all of us looking like Sunday school kids. It's craft foam. Craft foam, right? You get it in the Hobby Lobbies of Michael's around the country. It's really cheap. I know it because from Sunday school, right? And what's cool about it, it's really cheap. It's very lightweight, and it has volume. It has a thickness to it, right? And you can use that for wallets if you're trying to figure out how to layer pockets, so like tea pockets, things like that on top of each other. In fact, I think that's pretty much how I figured out the tea pocket thing. Tea pockets may have clicked to a lot of you and how you build a wallet. Didn't click to me. I didn't understand what was going on underneath the seams. It was using craft foam and layering on top of each other. So craft foam, cardboard, duct tape, whatever it takes. It doesn't have to be pretty. It's just for you. No one will ever see it but you, or unless you do a video for Illume, and then you'll all see it.
Everybody sees it.
Everybody sees it.
That's you know
But
what?
we fix it in post.
Yeah, exactly.
Then it
Exactly.
winds up as a reel that's called the bloopers reel or something.
Exactly. I've only seen one of those so far. Derek's put together, so we're pretty fortunate.
There's way too many to talk about, Odin, because
Right.
a lot of them I'm on them.
Oh, the magic of Derek pulls off in editing is amazing. Yeah.
I love that. I love the idea of the craft foam. That's a really good little nugget.
You
I
can
love
even
that.
sew it. You can even stitch the stuff.
Yeah, you
I've run
so
it through a sewing
sure you
machine.
can. Yeah,
Yeah, dirt
I
cheap.
know. Glue it,
Yep.
sew it, mold
Amazon
it.
cardboard boxes, whatever it is, use all that stuff to your advantage.
Very cool. Very cool. I do like I'm gonna have Derek drop just so you guys, if you haven't been in Odin's pattern making course, Rachel created a like fearless pattern making the guide, and it's really just the high level takeaways from the whole course in like 12 shortened and condensed steps, and it even has some Odinisms at the bottom, which one of them is don't waste time trying to save material. You're supposed to mess this up, which is exactly what we've been talking about. So, anyways, Derek will drop that PDF into the chat, and obviously it's in the course as well. But just go check it out. Really good stuff. Sierra, any CAD programs that anyone uses? Anybody?
I'm a little hesitant to say, here's what, if I say the name of what I use, you all may think that you need to go get that. It's not the case, right? It's just what I use, right? I mean, you can use whatever. I think we were in Arizona this past week, and subject came up several times, and everyone used something different. There was like 2 courses on people doing different things. That's okay, right? It's not about using the one tool, it's about using a tool that works for you. That's it, right? So if you get what you need out of it and it's free, or if it's $1 million a year, whatever makes sense for you, that's okay. I'll say I use Illustrator. I use Illustrator because I've been using it for 25 years. I know how to do it. And every time someone tries to introduce me to the new easy tool, which probably is much easier than what I'm doing, I'm just getting old, and I don't handle change very well. So it's like, I'm just going to stay with this thing here. But I know there are folks that do all their design completely on an iPad.
Yeah.
Down to the precise, fraction of a millimeter type designs. Other folks are a little more loose with it, and it's more about shapes and things like that.
Odin,
Yes.
do you think in what you've done, because I've never used CAD, so I'm just curious, knowing that you've used CAD plus you've just done it off the cuff by hand with cardboard, do you see that there's more value in one versus the other as far as your creativity and maybe what you can learn from it?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question. I'm very aware that we all learn and we all process things very differently, right? There are times where I need to get my hands into the mix of it, and I just need to lay the paper out, and I need to start cutting and sketching with a pencil, and I almost don't even know where I'm going to end up. I'm just letting the hands move around, right? And when that happens, it's usually going to be that cardboard, and then I will cut in shapes, and like finally, boom, I've got an idea how all these parts go together. Other days, it's me standing in a dark room like this, staring off into space, processing in my head, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the third way is, no, I know exactly what I have in my mind's eye. I go to the computer and I start designing because I know the sizes I want, all that stuff comes together. But it all ends up in the same place. They're just different starting points. So if I start on paper, for me at least, it's going to end up on the computer because that's just the type of guy I am. I want it all digitized. I have spec sheets. I go crazy with all these different details, right? But that's later down the process, down the way. Because we're a production shop, I'm going to get clicker dies made. Right.
Yeah.
So I want it to be digitized because I want it to be very precise, because once I invest in a clicker die, I will not get that money back. Right. So it has to be spot on. And then other days it's really more about, I just have to, I mentioned the T-pockets a moment ago, Matt. It was, for some of you, T-pockets was clicked immediately. No problem. For me, it didn't click immediately. I didn't understand it. I had to think about it and ideate on it for a long time until all the pieces came together. it all ends up the same place. You're going to have the moments you're going to probably go through each one of those. If you're not a computer person, don't fret. Don't have to be a computer person. That's fine.
So
I mean, we know plenty of people that have stacks and stacks of paper templates everywhere. That's okay too.
yeah, I put that in just because with my day job, it's CAD, like, because we use Optitex. So Optitex started as like a fabric, but you can add dimensions, so I can add full leather thickness and see, okay, if I overlap here, here, and here, here's how thick it's going to come out.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I can put even where like my stitch line and seams, if I'm gonna have a seam somewhere, I can see where that's at. So I can get a real quick rough and then say, okay, now I can send this to the cutting machine, cut it out of paper. And then from there, it saves me a lot of time on the sketching up front, but I didn't know if there was like a free version someone else uses, because I'm not gonna pay for a commercial license, obviously, on my personal side.
So my experience on there's CAT programs out there that are specific for textile manufacturing and making and things like that. They tend to be very expensive. I have not had the pleasure, nor have had the desire to want to afford to invest in any of those, right? My cardboard and my Sharpie and X-Acto knife will do just fine for now. They'll take me far. The advantage of some of those CAT programs, if you have the ability, because just because they're there, technology doesn't necessarily do the work for you. In fact, sometimes technology can make it more complicated to do the work because there's so many options in there, right? So Sarah, you may be very familiar with it and it works for you. You know it. That's great. Go forth and conquer with that. For me, Illustrator, I'm very proficient with it. I can do great things there. The others, it may be more of a hindrance for you to worry about the software. And then also, at the end of the day, what's the end goal? The end goal is take your idea out of your mind, get it on a paper or into some kind of three-dimensional thing that you can manipulate and turn it into your ideas, right? So don't let the technology stop you either way it goes.
Love it. Well, let's talk about your satchel course. And to go along with this whole preface of patterning, if you've been in the course, you will 100% see how crazy Odin gets with his details on the pattern. It's amazing because you're not going to have any questions about what is what. I mean, I think this is exactly how I would do it too. I'd be like, more information is better. I don't want anybody questioning what they need to do and how they need to do it. It's really, really, really good. So his Illustrator skills on display in the pattern for the satchel course. But moving past, I guess, anybody else have any other questions or comments on patterning? I do think it is like just foundational skill for so many things, whatever you're going to be doing. So I think this discussion has been really, really, really good.
There's another one that I liked that I think I heard from Aaron, but I'm sure other people have done it, but kind of reverse engineering, like having a favorite bag, or you go find bags and you tear them apart. Or even like with our upholstery classes, we're going to tear apart grandma's chair and there's your pattern. And so there are other starting points. Have you had some good luck with one place finding things somewhere than another?
Is that a question for me?
Yeah, Odin.
Sure. I've not done that in a while. I've not done any kind of deconstruction in a while because I was stacking up things I wanted to deconstruct, and I wasn't getting to those projects. My wife started looking at me a little crossways, like, you're buying all the stuff, you're not doing anything with it. That's a problem. But originally, I would go to Army surplus stores years ago. It tends to be solid. If you're in leathercraft, you like solid, well-made things that are going to last for years, right? I don't have a textile background, so I'm looking for like inspiration that way. I would go to Army surplus stores and I'd buy items there because I'm thinking canvas is pretty thick and heavy. Maybe there's something to be learned there. And then Goodwill.
What was the second one, Odin?
Goodwill, and the first one was Army surplus stores. Thrift stores, Goodwill. When I first got on the call, someone was talking about, I think, doing apparel. And I had received the same suggestion from a buddy of mine that just go buy an old leather jacket at Goodwill and take it apart so you can figure out how all the things go together.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. Low cost. Again, you don't have to make that exact item, right? The goal is to figure out how the pieces go together, maybe where there's some points of friction in the design that you want to overcome, and then you can turn it into whatever you want. I mean, something as simple as in that process, I'll just, how I look at it is, one thing I start thinking about is, if I find a bag that I like that's this big, and I want to do that, it's very easy to add it an inch height or inch width, right? You just cut it in half and add it inch to either side, and boom, now your pattern's growing that way. So really, you can break these things down to small pieces. Maybe the bag isn't exactly that you buy at Goodwill or surplus stores isn't exactly what you want. It's okay, but can it be morphed into what you're looking for? So a little wider, a little deeper, a little taller.
Yeah.
And if you're using cardboard,
I like that point, Odin, because you can almost create your own off of someone else's work just by doing those little subtle changes or adding pockets or whatnot. And that, that's good stuff. I like that idea.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be leather. It could be any material you like. It doesn't have to be leather. Keep that in mind.
I agree. Well, and honestly, I think that's how inspiration really works, right? Whether you're inspired by a specific product or a piece of art or the outdoors, or maybe it's a car. I don't know what it is, but I think that's just another way to find inspiration. And even if it helps, I can see how it, going to the Goodwill and just looking at things that are interesting to you, even when maybe you're in like maybe an inspirational slump, that could get you maybe out of that and get you thinking a little bit differently, and then get those creative juices flowing again. I could see that could be really beneficial and fun, different and fun. That's a great point, Derek. Deconstruct is another good way to start.
Yeah.
So awesome.
Doesn't matter what we're doing, we have to have a starting spot, whether it starts out from something you've seen somewhere, and typically that's how you're going to start something. You can't build what you can't see. You can't design what you can't see. And I see this all the time. People say draw your own patterns, but you have never seen how a pattern is or a bag is built. How do you take that and move with it? You have to find something you like and deconstruct it, so that you can build on that, so that then once you start building on that, then you can start adding that inch. You can start doing that, but you have to have a starting spot, and it has to be something you've seen generally.
Sure. Now, I absolutely agree with you. One word of caution is inspiration versus like emulation. Like Misty, you mentioned my patterns that they'll get in the course, right? And I have put a lot of detail in there because that's ultimately how I want to be. My personal patterns that I'm just using in the shop don't have nearly that much detail. Okay. So, just make sure you're not stopped. You're getting stopped by things that are superfluous and don't really matter. So if you look at my pattern, your pattern will be the same level. It's for you. As long as it communicates the information the way you need it to create the item that you're creating, that's all that matters.
Good point.
So now if you look at my pattern and say, oh, I think maybe next time I do a pattern, I'm going to add those details in. That's fine too. But you just have to temper those things a little bit.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny. It just reminds me of when I went down the road of I'm going to create my own flowers for my tooling pattern, and just went ham on drawing all kinds of different things and shapes and stuff, and finally get excited, and you're sitting next to Shane Dieter and you say, check this out. I finally got a flower that I've never seen, and he'll pull his book out and he's got one drawn that's the same. And it's like, well, I mean, because really you're right with that inspiration. It's probably something I saw maybe 2 years ago, and it's just coming to mind, or this or that, because it is that. I mean, there's so much of this we can't reinvent because it's already been invented. And that makes it kind of hard to just say, yeah, I created this whole entire thing on my own. My saddles didn't come from just me. I had lots of inspiration in my journey in the saddles, and it's thankful to those that let me see their work and talk to them about their work, and things just kind of happen if you appreciated that input you got from them.
So when you were talking about goodwill and looking at things to get inspiration and stuff like that, it just brought to mind, like when I was doing more repairs and stuff on the saddle side, you can take note and see how things are built, but if things are constantly breaking, it also gives you a chance to learn how you can modify things to make it better so they last longer too. So that was just my thought when I heard that, in the patterning and stuff like that. So
that's a really good point. And I'll counter that with, first of all, I agree with you, but I'll also give you one more counter, thought to that, which is works the opposite way around as well. You can also pick up where you're putting too much emphasis in certain areas, right? Okay. So you're like, hey, why does my bag have to have, or my item have to have all this stitching and all this stuff over here that I'm trying to, I tend to overconstruct things. I want it to be bomb proof, right? But then you look at other examples, you go to Goodwill, you look at other examples, like, well, why doesn't the Joe Schmoes of the world and the brands of the world don't do all that stuff? Maybe it's because they're saving costs, maybe because they're cheap, or maybe because they figured out that that thing doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
Right. So things to consider. Maybe you're overthinking it. Maybe it's not as complicated as our mind's eye was, leading us down that path. So it works both ways.
Love it.
Good point. Love it. Okay. I want to talk about prep. We've got a pattern. We're going to put it to leather. Finally, we've got all the pieces cut. Oh my gosh. Now what? What's important? Especially, and let's talk, since we've got Odin, let's talk specifically about bags. We made a satchel. It's beautiful. They're beautiful. We're so lucky. But let's talk about those little things that maybe that really separate some artists from others. Like I think skiving is pretty important. And I know sometimes it's a pain in the butt because it takes a bit of time.
Yeah.
But in the end, I think it just overall, just that one thing really elevates the piece.
Yeah. What goes along with that is picking the right materials that you have the capabilities to work with. I wasn't doing that. I was buying really heavy materials when I first started, and then realizing that, that doesn't really stitch together very easily. So in prep, picking the right materials that you can work with, realize that it doesn't have to be as thick and heavy as maybe your first thought is. You can work your way back a little bit. I think almost on everything, it doesn't have to be 337, 342 thread. You can probably get away with 92 thread. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I was stitching with heavy cord at first, it seems. But so all those type of things play a role in this. If you can't skive, okay, what leathers are going to turn and flip in a way that you can manage it, right? Maybe you can go with like a Kodiak or a Heritage or something like that. Those are different. I think makers carries both of those things.
Mm-hmm.
They're a little more flexible, right? By the way, keep in mind, it won't be your last bag. It's going to be your first bag, right? The goal is to get through it and learn from it. So don't overthink it and think you got to go buy, the best material in the world. This may be the case where you need to go buy the cheap stuff, right? And use that. You'll learn as you go. Every time you do it, you're going to learn something else, something else, something else. The satchel that we made in this class, I sell those satchels in my store, right? And they do well. But if I'm being honest, we cut all those by hand, by the way, still to this day. And that is partially,
it's a lot of pieces.
As I'm saying it, I'm like, that's dumb. We should actually get poker that's made for it. But part of that is because we always want to leave ourselves room to change.
Yeah.
For the longest time, every bag we made, we make hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of those bags now. Every bag was, well, this is one way we did today. Tomorrow, we may not like that. We're going to change it up. It's changed subtly over the years. So keep that in mind. Material to get through the project, not material to be the last time you ever do the project, right? That's two different things. So pick material. If you can't skive it, you don't want to skive, that's okay. Pick a lighter weight material. Maybe you line other areas of the bag. Okay.
Right.
Now, once you get into the finer details, like, hey, I've made it, I like the design, we can always refine. We can always ask ourselves questions about what we like, what we don't like, and address those differently. But if for your first 1 or 2 bags, it's really about just a material that has some body to it, something that you can minimize the amount of steps that you have to take in terms of skiving if you don't have a skiver. Think about those things, right? Now, in terms of prep, I'd also be very cautious. Go through all the steps. The prep is like 80% of the project.
Yeah.
Trace it out, cut it out, right? Don't rush through that at all. That is, I mean, the fun part starts when you start stitching it together, right? Cut all the leather pieces, lay them out. I have a mental problem where I count everything over and over and over again, right? Even if I've just counted 5 seconds ago, I got to count it again now. I'm making sure all the straps are there, all the hardware's there. That's really important to me. I want to make sure that once I get started, everything is in its place. I've accounted for the rivet that I'm going to have, because it sucks to get into the project. You realize I'm missing 2 rivets, or I'm missing a swivel, or I'm missing a buckle, whatever. So lay all this stuff out, right? And then another thing, and I'm sorry, go ahead, Misty.
That's really, really great advice, especially if you're trying to make money. Let's talk about finding efficiencies. That's a really, really, really great, easy, lowest hanging fruit way to just create efficiencies, is just making sure that you have everything you need once you're ready for the assembly.
Yep.
Right where you need it. So you're not having to get up, walk over to the thing, find the thing, come back. Because every time you have to do that, you're adding dollars, or you should be adding dollars to the cost of that item, because that's going to take you more time. So if you're trying to, if we're thinking of things in that way, that's a really, really important step. Really important.
In that mode of prep, Odin, I'm interested because I'm not a bag maker. I'm intrigued with bag makers for sure, especially spending time around Aaron just a couple weeks ago and stuff, and what you guys are putting out there. But because I know I have to think so far ahead of what I'm actually doing right this moment. How much of that do you find yourself you're on your mind's on 4th step? Because if you don't think about the 4th step now as you're prepping, you may miss something, and you get to that point, it's like, oh shit, now I can't get inside this bag to put my pocket in there, or whatever that is. So I'm just kind of curious, and it's for the people that really want to make bags, like how far ahead should we be thinking about this product?
Well, it's funny because you're saying about bag making, and one, I don't consider myself a bag maker. I'm a bit of a hack that just doesn't know when to quit. But also, you're a saddle maker, and I'm like, oh man, that bags are way easier than saddles. I mean, it's only a few things to consider. You've got hundreds and hundreds of things to consider. So I guess it depends on just what angle you're looking at it. But I think one of the ways that I figure out where I'm missing things is by pre-assembly, right? We're always in such a rush, and I get it. I am also. We're just trying to start stitching, start cutting. I mean, and even though I'll probably go out in my workshop later tonight and I'll be in a rush to do something also, I am reminded often that, if I just slow down, take my time, make sure I check off the list, all these different things. When cutting the pieces, Matt, I actually have my pattern pieces, and again, I'm a counter, so I cut my piece, I lay the pattern piece on top of it. Because the next piece, lay the pattern piece, and that's how I'm accounting to make sure everything's there, because I want to make sure I haven't forgotten anything. Because once I actually start working, I want it to be, I want to keep going through it smoothly, right? More often than not, the things that I'm worried about, and order of operations does matter in bag making, because at some point you're going to not be able to get access to certain parts of the bag. That's usually in your pockets, right? You kind of want to work for the inside out, right? Other thing you want to write is your edges. If you're into edges, if you're not going to bind them some kind of way, obviously certain pieces you're going to have to make sure that you're going to make sure that you are doing all the edge work beforehand, and that's all in the prep. I mean, when we get a bag, if I'm making one bag, literally we'll do all the cutting at one point in time. We'll lay all the hardware out, make sure we're checking everything off, and then we'll start gluing or pre-assembling those pieces, laminating them, gluing them together, things like that, making sure the edges are done. Some of those edges you're not going to get access to again. And then if it's a bag that I've never done before, usually the gusset is where things get a little hairy. Well, that gets clipped together.
Yeah.
Gets clipped together, then unclipped, and clipped together, and unclipped, and clipped together. I mean, over and over again, right? That's just part of it as well. I see Derek had his hand up, and also and then Lena.
Yeah, just kind of backtracking just a little bit here to materials. If you're just getting started and you can't go touch the leather, what are some questions you can ask a supplier that will maybe get you a little closer to what you're after, or where to begin with that? I'm just sitting here thinking that's going to be hard if you can't see it and touch it.
My personal experience tells me back off of the weight of leather that you're planning for. I think most of us are overdoing it, right? It doesn't have to be as thick and heavy as you think, right? When you start into bag making, especially if you get into linings and things like that and interfaces, that adds a lot of the bulk to the bag and stiffness to the bag, not the actual presentation leather on the outside. So that's something to consider. The other piece is, it's not uncommon for me to call the broker, whoever we're buying leather from, and say, "Hey, what is everybody else using that leather for?" "Oh, they're using it for saddles." Okay, probably not going to make a good bag then. Okay, so we buy a lot of leather. We haven't actually touched it and felt it, but we're asking questions about what's the temper of the leather, how well does it fold. I mean, I may ask call them and say, "Hey, send me some pictures of that leather, bending it back and forth." If you're buying leather, it's easy enough to say. I mean, if I called makers, I mean, I think I saw Docs on how is it Doc? Is it a bag leather? Is it is it a shoe leather? I mean, what are we talking about? And those people selling leather are usually going to do a pretty good job giving you some indication of how it's being used. That's not to say that you can only use bag leather or you can only use this type. No, I mean, but if you're trying to narrow in on something, it's okay to ask questions like, "Hey, what is everyone else using it for? Where did it come from?" Every leather out there is tanned with some recipe for some specific reason. The closer you can get to that reason, probably the easier chance of success you're going to have up front before you start breaking stride and trying other things. Lena?
Good advice. Lena,
For me,
go ahead.
For me, it's important that you order some samples from your supplier. I have books that I've put together so that I know when I'm going to order leather for a pair of chaps that it's the right leather for the area that they're going to be using it in or whatever. And I've got those samples of weights, temper, so I can feel it. And most companies will send you a color swatch. Hide House sends you a book about that thick, and it's got every leather that they build in it or that they sell, and it's got a swatch where you can feel it. Most of them are glued down, so you can't feel it. So those are things that when you're looking to buy materials and you're starting out, don't be afraid to ask your supplier to send you samples so you can feel it, and then you don't have that guessing game. The second thing I would say about ordering from suppliers is that you use, heaven forbid, this is going to sound bad, but I don't use any online ordering. I pick somebody out in that company, and they're the only ones that I talk to, and I build a relationship with them so that they can answer my questions honestly. And it's not, well, I don't know, you have to talk to so-and-so down the street or on the other side of the building. That's really made it easy for me to order material from places that I don't know because I can build a relationship.
It's good advice.
I want to make sure we give Lena a chance to ask her question too.
I don't have a question. I was just kind of touching back on like going through the steps, and I'm a novice in this still, and
We all
I'm
are.
getting to learn under Aaron, and I've seen so much of his processes, and then coming from my own, trying to teach myself, like going back to that deconstruction, like seeing how it comes apart in the layers that it comes apart in, really helps you to kind of wrap your head around like, okay, these are the pieces that, they come off first, so they go on last. So you can really kind of wrap your head around that with your hands on. And I'm definitely a hands-on person. And then also, like you said, by the third bag, you usually have it kind of nailed down. So it's just a matter of going through the process and being like, oh my gosh, I totally missed doing this. Now I can fix it for the next one. And Aaron's favorite thing to tell me when I make a mistake is, well, did you learn from it? And it's a trial and error. And that's really how we get our experience, is just going through and putting our hands on it and doing it. And we make it efficient as we go.
Yeah, I've done several of Aaron's bag making classes online, and some of the videos he's done, and you know, I made lots of my own bags, but every time I go to someone else's class, I watch how they do it. I learn something different, different process, something, a different technique, a different way, easier way, harder, whatever, right? Some ways, sometimes I watch something like, oh, hell no, I'm not doing it that way. Absolutely not. That's too difficult. But that's the learning process, right? You're learning from everywhere. I don't press again to know the right answer or the only answer. I just know this is how I do it. It works for me, and I hope that inspires you to do it, to sort through the problems yourself as well.
Isn't that the beauty of
Absolutely.
learning?
That's it. Brett,
Really,
do you have a
really
question?
Well, and
is.
coming together like this,
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
coming
Brett.
together like this, we can have a hive mind, and it's so beneficial. So thank you, everybody, for doing that.
Yeah, thank you as well.
Yeah, I cut some wallets out the other day, some front pocket wallets from Aaron that I was going to make, and I should have paid more attention, but I got into it, and it was like I didn't have a tool I needed, and I didn't have some hardware I needed. So, I mean, it's like I should have figured that out before I ever cut leather, but it's waiting for me until the tools arrive.
Well, it happens to the best of us. I mean, one of my jobs is to keep my guys working, and by making sure all the materials lined up and hardware's lined up for them. And I'm better at it, but I'm definitely not perfect at it just yet. So I get it.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like that is a completely different skill set too. I mean, at Burns, at our family company, we have many people in that position where their primary role is just ordering materials, making sure that the craftsmen have what they need when they need it, and that it's just there. Otherwise, production shuts right down, and it's not great. So, but that is definitely, like to Matt's earlier point, that's really thinking way ahead, and kind of forecasting what we're going to need at that given time, what we're going to be doing, looking at maybe things you have on the calendar that you need to consider about, getting into production too. So it's 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 a whole thing being a leather crafter, especially a leather crafter that wants to make a little money at it, because it's a lot more than just sitting down to make the satchel. It's a lot more. There's a lot of intention and preparation and forethought, planning. I agree, Odin, when you said most of the work happens in the prep. I 100% agree. We say that with like when we invite like artisans into the studio. We say the more we can get done on the front end before you ever make it to the airport in Utah, the better things are going to go in the studio every time. It just is, you know.
Are you picking on me right now? No, I'm joking.
No.
I'm joking.
Don't tell
we're
anyone.
We're just all having fun here.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
I think that my most memorable filming moment was when we had to go to Tandy with Chuck Dorset. Don't tell anyone at Weaver. We were like,
That's
his stuff
privileged
didn't make it. And we were like, well, shoot. Well, we have a Tandy store down the road. So, yeah, sakes, it was quite something. Dusty, go ahead.
Yeah, and maybe you've touched on this. I haven't gone through the course yet, but I've made my wife some bags, and none of them. As a man, I cannot design a bag. Do you take into consideration or ask your wife or significant other, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a big thing, because what matters to me, like, I'm a saddle maker. So I'm
You're
like,
gonna, you're gonna turn this to a therapy session with questions like that.
yeah,
So,
right.
okay, so
Maybe you've touched on that, so you don't have to do that again. But I think it's important for like
yeah,
a lot of people in here to probably grasp that. Like, don't be afraid to ask your significant other or do something like what's important to them to make, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, so that's a really good one because here's a good example. If I make a backpack, for instance, I'm probably going to choose buckles over zippers because I think buckles going to last longer. They're never going to break, right? Or less likely to break. And if they do break, I'm going to replace a strap. Not a big deal. Okay. My wife, however, would tell me that that is the most asinine thing in the world because it's too hard to get in and out of, blah, blah. And in fact, if you looked at the products we make at the store, there is a difference between how we design for a guy versus a lady, right? Now, they have different considerations. Guys have other considerations. It is useful to ask those questions. I don't know how a purse. I don't know what makes a purse useful. We make this little mini purses about this big right now, and I don't understand. We've been selling a ton out of those things. I don't understand what the heck they're for. I don't get it. You can't even fit your phone in the doggone thing. But the young ladies that work for me have convinced me that it is the hottest thing out there. And I was like, okay, we're making it, sure. And they're right, it does sell. But in terms of functionality, I don't know, right? And so it was difficult for us to, me and Brandon and Drew out here to work on those because we didn't understand them. And so asking a lot of questions, they break it down for us, I don't have to understand every aspect of it. One thing I would encourage you if you're trying to design your own bags is the drop length for like straps. I have learned over the years that ladies carry bags different ways. Some, like my wife, she likes to carry it in a little crook of her arm here, right? And so she doesn't want the bag to be too tight where she can't. It has to go from here to here, here to here, right? And if it's not enough drop, then that's a problem for her. Okay. Now here's the thing: she's a lot smaller than I am, right? So if I measured on my arm, one, I look pretty silly in these windows doing that all day, but also we're different shapes. So things like that you do need to consider. Um, if you're designing for a customer, remember it's for the customer's functioning, not necessarily for yours. Now, I say a lot of things that you kind of talk on both sides of my mouth here because there are certain things that no matter how functional that young lady that comes here wants that bag to be, some things I'm just not going to do. Like it's just not on brand for us. And we are not here to make everything. We're here to make things that are on brand for us, that make sense for our shop and for our team and the leathers and the type of process we use here. Some things we're just going to say no to. It's okay to say no. If you don't want to make it, you don't have to make it, right? If you're in it for the craft, however, you want to learn from that craft, I'd say go at it fearlessly. Make that European, Euro style purse with all the bedazzlement on it if you want. You're going to learn something in the process. That's not what we normally do here. I wouldn't understand how to bedazzle a purse to begin with, right? But those are all fine questions. Ladies are going to use those items differently than we are, but that's not just for bags. That's for wallets. That's for even hats. I mean, honestly, asked my wife to go buy to our hat supplier buy baseball caps for us. What she came back with, I was like, we're not wearing that. No one's going to wear that. She looked good to her though, right? So there are differences between how men and women styles and things like that. All things to consider. You're going to learn something in the process. Ask her what's the most important thing. My wife swears that on one bag, the most important thing that we missed in the original design was didn't have a back pocket on it.
Mm.
Didn't have a place to put her phone. Right? Things like that. On the satchel that is in this course, it has two buckles on the front.
Yeah.
I find the buckles very sturdy, and that's the best way to do it because they're not going to break. You can load the bag up with bricks and all that kind of stuff. It's going to work. Okay. However, if it's for someone who goes to the airport on a regular basis, it may be a hindrance. A lady does not want to, well, I've learned the lady, she doesn't want to open and close the buckles. They'll ask me in the store, why did you choose buckles? Because it's strong. She didn't care about it being strong. She cared about it being looking good for this season. Right? Potato, I mean, it's all over the place. It's just part of the design process. Ask those questions. You'll get some good answers that you didn't consider. You're going to get other answers. You're going to say, well, that's great. Appreciate the feedback. I'm going to move on, go this direction.
Good. I love it. Well, we've talked about a lot of things, mostly patterning, which I love. I think that's so useful, but we are going to one more call for one last question or comment, and then I'm going to let you all go. But this has been really, really great. Derek will drop the replay in the in the community that I just forgot the name of it, Live Events
Live
Hub.
one.
Thank you. I'm like, wait, what is it called? Anyways, in the Live Events Hub, that'll be there soon. And then also, I mean, if you haven't gotten into Odin's courses yet, get in there. There's so much good stuff. I tell you. I mean, the satchel is really, really, really in depth, and you're going to learn all sorts of things that you can apply to that thing that you design later. You know, it's just really all about foundational skills, and that's why we put these things together. That's why we beg and bother and plead and for all of these people to come out and spend some time in the studio with us so that we can create these courses so that we can just all get better at what we do and learn and grow and help one another. Really, it's just awesome. Anyways, anyone have any other thing before we let you all get back to your evening?
I've been dragging my feet to make a satchel. Now I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
It's a good place to start.
Awesome, Brett. That's awesome. You got to be sure once you're done, post it in the community.
Okay, will do.
Bit of housekeeping again. So next month we're going to be talking to Mark and his SHAP course that just came out. I don't know.
Yeah.
It came out this
That's
month,
good.
right?
Yeah.
It just came out. So next month we'll be checking in on that, and then of course bring your other questions. Mark's has done it all. He's got a lot of good background. So
I'm working my way through those courses now, so the good courses.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you, everybody. We appreciate you guys taking the time to spend with us and talk things through. Thanks again, Odin. Really,
My pleasure.
thank you.
Thanks for having me.